What's good, y'all? Hope y'all are having a great day. In today's video, we have episode 2, in which case I'm playing nothing but the Hippopotamus Defense, trying to reach nothing but the Hippo in Title Tuesday, playing 11 games. In episode 1, I ended up going 4 out of 11. In this recent Title Tuesday, I went up to 6 out of 11 against players with the following titles. Now, I must say, one of my opponents didn't show up. Okay, so, maybe they left their computer or something. I don't know. And then there were a couple games, one of which we're actually going over today, in which case I didn't get the full Hippo, and I'm excited to give you my thoughts on that as well. But yeah, overall, good result. I'm out here trying to, play the best chess I can. I started out with 4 out of 11. This past time I got 6 out of 11. And I don't think, just like anything, it's not going to be a straight line, right? Rating goes up and down, all that kind of stuff. But I'm hoping to just keep building on my top score. So my next goal is to get 6.5 or 7 out of 11 by playing nothing but the Hippopotamus Defense. Now, we're going to be going over 2 games, 1 win, 1 loss. And this loss here, I think has a valuable lesson. Notice I'm going up against a 3,000, okay? Jeffery Xiong, very, strong GM player, young American GM. And his rating's over 3,000. I don't think I've actually ever played up until this point anyone rated over 3,000 online. So, it was a cool experience, and let's also say it didn't go well, but okay. G3 is played as white, right? So I go for my usual 1, 2, and 3. Boom, boom, boom. Knight F6, I play E3, H5. Now here, I play H3, so that if H4, I can play G4. Without H3, G4 is not possible, and, if I let this happen with no kind of coverage there, right, even without Knight F3, not the bishop, but Knight F3, Black's going to have the leverage there on the king side, the ability to take, the ability to push. So I play H3. H4 here for Black. I just don't think it's a good move practically. This pawn might look scary, but where's it going to go now? Nowhere. And really, it's just a big old target. We can attack it with a knight at some point. Our bishop at some point can get involved. And notice if the rook ever castles or moves off that file, that pawn's even more weak. So there you go. So, okay, I'm playing against a 3,000. Jeffrey plays his move, bishop d6 instead, much better move. c6, b3, a5 again. Okay, and in this kind of position, there's a couple of different things that you can go with. All right, in the game, I play the move of a3. Now, as you guys have probably seen on the channel before, there's times where I'll see this and I'll just go, you know what, I don't want to deal with it, and I'll play a4. But it really depends on my mood. Okay, I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer here. A3 is totally playable. And, in this game, I wasn't worried about A4. I was ready to play B4. Now, if there's a knight on C6, I always play A3. But if this pawn on the C file is free, sometimes I'll play A4 because I don't want to deal with a position like this. But sometimes I don't mind it, right? And in this case, white can take. We can play D4, striking in the center. If you want to take, we capture back with our E pawn. This is a pretty interesting position because, on one hand, white has some weaknesses. An isolated pawn, I think C3 and especially C4. This would be a very nice outpost for Black. On the other hand, A4 is weak, right? That's a big target. I think the dark squares here for Black are pretty weak as well. And, we're able to play a move like bishop G5. And notice, because of H5, this bishop ain't getting kicked. This is a pin, and you can't just kick my bishop out like you usually would. So, the engine likes white here. A move like knight c3 coming soon, putting pressure on both of these pawns. And sure, we're out of our regular Hippo, but that's okay. This is a good playable position for white. These kind of positions are ones that you can gain knowledge in. But again, there's times too where I see that. I don't want to go into a position like that, so I'll play a4, and that's fine. I think either one works. The Hippo gives you flexibility. It's one of those kind of openings where at some point you can steer off if you want to. In the middle game, right, there's those 4 middle game attacking ideas, which I went over in my, 6+ hour course on the Hippo. And everyone has their own style of play, their own flavor to it, which is kind of cool. But all right, I play this move A3. We do not see the move of A4, but instead bishop E6 from Jeffrey. I play bishop E2, tuck my knight. Knight F8 is played. Now's the breather moment, right? Now, as a Hippo player, is the moment where we take a breath and go, what now? What now? Right? And notice here, because of these pawns on A5 and H5, these moves just aren't going to happen right now, right? They're off the table. Central moves, I usually stay away from these because if I push one of these guys, black can just sit there, and it doesn't feel like I really improved the position a ton. And I don't want to just push a pawn and take something, because then our hippo is kind of getting unwound. I play the move of c4, but I do want to mention that f4 is also playable here. Okay. Now, what disqualifies a flank pawn move? Number one, if a knight can jump in and attack. Well, that can't happen here. We just capture that piece. Second thing, if this pawn is attacked, there's nothing on this diagonal right now, so that's totally safe. And finally, if black takes and they automatically have an open file, usually, not always, but usually that means don't use the flank pawn. But in this case, if white takes, there's no major piece here, so f4 is totally playable. We're threatening to take on e5, winning a pawn and forking two minor pieces. If a move like knight g6, we can castle kingside, again threatening a fork. If the queen tries to stop it, we can just start taking stuff, play knight f4. Yeah, pretty much dead even game here. But one in which case I would personally rather play with the white pieces. Okay. But all right, I play this move of c4 instead, just trying to gain some space, put pressure on d5. And yeah, I mean, if a move like d takes c4, this is just not the answer for black. I personally would recommend a move like knight takes c4 in most cases, just in a practical sense, because the center is not locked up. And by having our minor pieces here, we're able to put some pressure on e5. That said, a move like, b takes c4 is playable, but I usually like taking with the knight in this kind of instance if the center is not locked up, because now we have two minor pieces putting pressure on e5. Sometimes there's a knight here where the bishop is also putting pressure on that knight as well. A lot of fun positions here that can happen. Yeah, I also want to mention, again, as I talked about, let's just look at the following position, right? Let's compare this. So the first position we had was this, right? In which case, if they take, we capture back with the knight. What if the center is already locked up and then they take? Well, in this case, I think taking with a b pawn, taking towards the center, is a good idea, because these pawns side by side, right, are wiping out half of the fifth rank. Black, has to be worried about pawn pushes throughout the whole game. And on top of that, by keeping our knight here, we have even more pressure on e4, right? If you want to play a move defending it, we have that option of just bringing in another knight. We got 1, 2, 3 pieces attacking that. Yeah, I mean, black here, simply because they took, that pawn chain has been compromised. And yeah, but that's that's why in a position like this, taking towards the center, it just doesn't do the same thing, right? I mean, this pawn here is just a lot less strong than a pawn on d4, and I think the knight in this case, it's not really doing much. It's not putting pressure on a pawn like e4. So all that to say, going back, I think if the center is locked up, use the pawn, because pawns side by side are very powerful. If the center is not locked up in the hippo, capture back with the knight. That's the best thing to do. But all right, in this game, we have knight g6. I play queen c2, just trying to develop. Queen d7 is played. I go with knight c3, just trying to add some pressure here. Notice if a move like d4, I can just reroute to e4, and this is a very solid position for white to work with. But we see castling kingside. Again, I'm playing against a 3000, so Jeffrey here is not going to make any mistakes. I think I played like 85%, 85.1 or something this game, and yeah, I think he played in the 90s. So I play knight a4. This was the best move here. I'm threatening a fork, right, of the queen and the rook. Queen d8 is played. I play c5. Good move again. I think in this case, though, I played knight f3, but, castling queenside, this is an idea that the engine really likes. And usually, with pawns like this, we wouldn't do so. But let's think about it for a second. How does black attack our king? I mean, let's just say they try, right? First off, this pawn ain't going nowhere. These two pawns, I mean, if one of them pushes, we have the ability to take or just literally leave it there. If a move like e4, we capture, and, we capture again. I mean, pieces are just starting to unravel for the white side, and we have a very good game there. And yeah, I mean, let's say something like b5 is played. Okay, we can take. We can play a move like king b1. If you ever have a king that's castled queenside, right, in the hippo or not, and this c file ends up being open, this little maneuver of king b1, rook c1, very nice idea. 1-2. The king's nice and tucked away now. King a2 can happen at some point. You have a battery ram against that pawn on c6. White here with a solid game. But again, I played this move of knight f3. Not terrible. But after knight h7, d4. This move, on the other hand, big mistake. Okay, now, usually in the hippo, if the center is locked up, that's a good thing for us. But notice, in this position after e4 and I move my knight, let's think about which side has the ability to improve their position, right? How does white improve this knight? I don't know. Okay. I mean, b6 is covered. We could run back here if we want to. But I mean, f4 is covered as well. This bishop, usually we can reroute to a3 or c1, but all of these diagonals are taken up. I mean, that bishop ain't doing nothing. The queen's kind of locked down. This knight doesn't have much of a future at the moment. And even pawn break wise, cannot move, right? Or should not move really, because en passant, and we have a backwards pawn. G3 will be weak as well. Cannot move, cannot move, cannot move, cannot move. Maybe, but that's about it. And we're not going to push over here right now because of all the pressure that black has on that side of the board. Black, on the other hand, they have the ability to improve their pieces, right? They can play moves like f5, knight g5, right? Keep developing, play b5 whenever they want. When we're playing, we have to ask ourselves, if we're going to go into a closed position, I don't care what opening it is, who has the leverage here? Who has the ability to improve? Sometimes both players can improve, and that's kind of when it gets a little bit tougher, but there's also going to be positions where, okay, I have ways that I can improve, my opponent can't. That's the best time to close up a position and then just keep slowly, in kind of a Karpovian style, look to keep slowly improving your pieces and not doing so in a rush. And usually in the Hippo, a closed position is good. The difference here is that by having our pawn all the way on c5, we don't have the ability to play c4, right? And, put pressure on this pawn and all that kind of stuff. By this pawn being on c5, this kind of locks up a lot of ideas for us. And there's no king here. So even if we do push like crazy, black doesn't really care, in all honesty. And on top of that, black's pieces are a lot worse off, but playing against a 3000, he's positioning his pieces very nicely. A lot of pressure on the king side, a lot of ability to improve. So that's my take on it. I think this pawn on c5, at the time it was a good move. I don't think c5 was bad, but I do think locking it up was bad, right? Now, after knight h7, again, I played d4. Let's say I castled queenside. Here's the difference, right? In the game, right? Let's say black plays something like f5 and f4, just breaking things open. This diagonal is still available, right? This diagonal still could be available because we haven't locked it up like this. In this case, we can play a move like rook hg1, right? And because there's no pawn on d4, my knight can improve. The bishop has wide open vision on that g7 pawn. This rook is also active. The queen can activate at some point as well. There's a lot more potential play for white if we keep this pawn here, keeping these as an option, right? Because if f4 is played, we have that ability to break things open. But all right, I play that move of d4, and in this case, I just don't have leverage. I don't have the ability to improve my pieces. I play g4. I ended up taking there. And yeah, I mean, castling queenside now, but, knight f4. This is just some 3000 type stuff. When I saw that, I mean, he played this in like, not very long, like 8 seconds, knight f4. And I was just like, okay, did he just hang a piece or something? Kind of, but not really. All right. If I decided to take, e3 would have been played. And this was actually the best move for me to take that knight. But even then, I mean, knight e4 is the move here. Bishop takes could happen. Hopefully y'all can see why this didn't look fun. So, instead of that, I ended up dropping this bishop back. Knight g5 is played, though. At some point, I got to take this knight, or else I'm going to, there's so much stuff that black can do. I ended up playing bishop d3, blocking with my bishop now. But okay, capturing. They ended up, taking with the rook. And I played rook g1, but, even though we're at even material, let's just compare piece activity. Which bishop is better? Theirs. Which knight is better? Theirs. Which one of these rooks is better? I'm going to say theirs. Which one of these rooks is better? Okay, finally, we have one piece that is better. But is it? Because this rook on d3 is very awkward. Okay, I play rook g2 trying to hang on, but I just have, too many weaknesses here. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this game wraps up pretty quickly. Nice little finish here. Check, check. I attack the knight. Black doesn't care. I resign here. The reason for that, if I take this knight, h2, I can't stop that, right? And if I don't take the knight, h2, and I can't stop that. So I resigned. But yeah, overall, I mean, up to this point, I mean, you know, we have this move of knight h7. White's okay here. I mean, as I'm looking at the engine, it's saying, you know, very close to even for white, slight advantage for black. After a move like, you know, castling queenside, h4 is a move that it recommends. It also likes rook g1. But this move of d4 here, this just doesn't do it, right? Because black ends up getting a lot of space, and we really have no way to put pressure on that center, right? We don't have that ability to play c4 and start chipping away at that center because we've already committed like this. We can't play f3 at some point because in this case, they could take, this pawn will be weak, the pawn on g3 will be weak, e4 will open up, tons of issues there. If you lock up the center, you got to ask yourself, do I have that ability to use the flank pawn and put pressure on it? And if the answer is no, you probably should stay away from it. Hope you enjoyed that game. You know, hopefully if I play a 3000 again, I can do better. But let's just be real, 3000s are tough. So anyways, hope you like that one. Hey guys, I really quickly wanted to tell you about something that we've been working on for over a year. I have partnered with Coastline Creative and we have come out with some exclusive Chess Giant merch. Okay, we got t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags, and more. And if you're interested in getting 10% off, all you got to do is go to my website, okay, and on there you'll get invited to join my email list. Join my email list and I will send you the discount code there. On top of that, if you want to get 20% instead of 10%, all you got to do is become a supporter on my Patreon, become a patron, and you will get 20% off of all Chess Giant merch in the future. Okay, I hope you guys like the designs. Let me know what you think of them down in the comment section below. Let me know any ideas that you have for future, you know, clothing ideas, design ideas, and all that kind of good stuff that we can put on the site. And yeah, let's get back to the video. This next game that I played, I was going up against a FIDE master with an online rating of 2678. And again, I'm playing the Hippopotamus Defense as white. Let's take a look. So as stated, right, in the first game, I like to start out this move with g3. In the game, we have h5. Wow, right? And as this h5 move is played, chess.com is telling me that this is called the Lasker-Simel special variation. Not sure on the history on that, but that's interesting. You know, we have that move of h5, and I've actually had this played against me in tournament chess. Okay, I was, you know, 2 out of 2 when I was on my journey to trying to hit National Master, which thankfully, by God's grace, I was able to. I hit the National Master title by playing nothing but the Hippopotamus Defense from both sides. And at this point in the tournament, I was 2 out of 2. I play the move g3. My opponent, h5, move 1. I mean, talk about gutsy play here. I mean, h5, I mean, that's a move. Okay. In this game, I played the move of knight f3. All right, in the over the board game, I think I played bishop g2 and then just to control the center. In my Hippopotamus Defense course, I talk about this, okay? When we see a move like h5, the hippo is just not going to happen. It's just not, okay? And, you know, I know some players are, you know, going to say, well, the hippo is busted then. The hippo's refuted. It's not good. You know, it doesn't even work against everything. Guys, nothing works against everything in chess. Nothing does. Nothing works against anything, okay, that I can think of. And h5, this is the move that we're scared of. We're scared of h5. We're scared of h5. We're talking about h5 right now. We're not talking about a game. We're talking about h5 right now. What are we doing? Shout out to AI. But all right, I mean, h5. In this case, I play knight f3. I think this is the best move here. Or one of the best moves. I personally like knight f3 because think about it in this way. Think about it this way. Let's say you start out the game with knight f3 and your opponent plays h5. Whoa. People would be thinking, what does that move do? What on earth? And of course, in this case, maybe we would play d4 or e4, but this just weakens g5 and it weakens g6 as well. If black tries to strengthen g5 at some point, guess what? They just weaken g6. So this causes a ton of issues, and I think just about anyone here would go h5 does a lot more harm for black than it does good, right? So we just switch the move order up, g3 if h5, knight f3, okay? Now, let's talk about it, though. Let's talk about why, against a move like h5, I don't recommend h3. Usually in the Hippo, this kind of thing is great. If h4, we lock it up. But in this, at this point in the game, we have not developed, guys. We don't have development, and we're not ready to just keep kind of moving pawns and try to develop in a Hippo-like fashion, because black is going to go crazy against us. And again, we lack development. We don't have that ability to strike back in the center because none of our back rank pieces have even moved yet. I mean, in this case, if we push, they win a pawn, right? Bishop e2 is just ugly. If we take, the bishop captures back. You know, if we just develop, there's a lot of things that black can do there. They can take on g4. They could even just keep adding the pressure with something like knight f6. You know, g5, knight h5, that pawn's feeling lonely. If we capture, the bishop captures back. This is just not a fun position for white, in my opinion. So that is why against h5, I played that move of knight f3. And the reason I include this game is because, you know, part of it, the Hippo is great, right? And in most games, I get the Hippo. I mean, in my tournament games that I've played so far, I'd say 85-90% of games, I get a full Hippo. But sometimes you got to deviate, and this is one of those moments. Okay. Now, in the game, we have this move of b6. I continue with bishop g2, and I just decided to play it like a King's Indian attack now, right, in that kind of fashion. h4 is played. Black really geared up this move. You know, here, could have I went with h4? Sure. But then g4 is weak as well. So I ended up just going, you know what, I'm going to play c3. h4 is played. I ended up capturing, and then, you know, here playing this move of knight bd2. Now, after knight f6, I played the move of h3. However, I think that knight takes, followed by just the practical move knight f3, is a good way for white to play this. Just take the bishop, play knight f3. White has the bishop pair now, and once the rook moves, we can play a move like bishop g5. Again, because you played h5 on move 1, this bishop is not going to get kicked. I don't know how you get rid of this bishop right now, right? You got to get your queen out of the way at some point. You got to do something here besides just play h6 and say everything's good. This bishop is very strong. e5 ideas are in the air as well. But okay, knight f6 is played. I ended up playing h3 instead, knight f1. d6 is played here. And I think the best way for white to play this is taking that bishop and playing queen g4. I mean, this is just great chess from white. If the queen wants to run away somewhere, then that's fine. We can play knight g3 and start advancing on the king side. And this does feel like more like a Hippo position in a lot of ways. And if you take, I mean, that's just a blunder because we capture back. We're going to win your knight. And if your knight runs away, we're going to win your rook. We're winning a piece or your major rook. You decide. In either case, white's winning that. But yeah, I think in this case, take the bishop, offer up a trade. You can't even take the trade, right? And by the way, I mean, let's say black plays something like knight f6. Well, okay, we can take the rook, you know, play a move like bishop g5. Solid game for white here. Not winning, but, you know, it's a solid position to work with, which is what we're trying to get out of the Hippo. Instead, I play this move e5. Now, this is a mistake, objectively. But I want to add, too, that this is a blitz game, right? These are blitz games. There's not a ton of time to calculate. And I saw that this move of e5 was dangerous. Now, I'm not advocating that you play hope chess and just do cheap little tricks and just hope your opponent falls for them. But, you know, I do think that e5 here has some power behind it. It has some strong ideas. Let's just say, for example, black plays a6. There's actually two types of things that can happen here. Let's just say they play a6. This is a tactical idea that you can use on a lot of positions, even if your knight is pinned in some sense, right, to your bishop. Of course, a bishop on a bishop is not really a pin, but you get the point. In this case, we can take this piece. We can take that bishop right off the board. If you take my knight, I win your light squared bishop. I'm up a piece there. If you capture my bishop, notice my knight took a piece. Now it gets to leave the line of fire, capture back, right? So keep this idea in mind. You can take a piece and defend this one at the same time. And if that bishop is hanging, you're about to go up 3 points of material, right? You know, 2 or 3. I mean, following the line there, we take, they can win a pawn. Who cares, right? I mean, queen f3. We're up a piece for a pawn here with a great game. And let's say black sees this. Let's just say black sees this, right? After that move of e5, and they play the move d5 going, you know what? Now if they take, I get the bishop. Queen a4 is the idea there. And once you block, we capture back with the knight. Now, why is queen takes h4 a mistake? The reason for that is because, well, black can capture back, and then they can capture on e5. D3 is attacked, and after the move of king E2, the computer move, by the way, bishop A6, this pawn, this is just getting tough. I mean, we're +2, but the engine only has it at plus 0.31 for white. So, take that as you will. But yeah, I personally don't love this position for white. So going back, right after that move, knight T7, instead we capture with the knight, because if knight oh wait, they can't. Knight takes E5 is not possible. It's pinned. And sure, you can earn that. You can take this knight and then play knight takes E5, but then you just gave up your queen. So knight takes is a much better move. Now, white has time to bring the knight back, right? Or play D4, depending on what black does. And yeah, I think that the white here has a good game. So I play that move E5. My nearly 2,700 rated opponent responds with bishop E7. I ended up playing rook G1, just putting that rook on the semi-open file, capturing on D6, playing knight G3. And after knight captures, obviously we're going to take back. Bishop F6 is played. And yeah, I just keep developing queen E2. I think both sides are feeling relatively safe right now. I mean, it's not like either king is in danger. Rook C8, bishop F4. The engine likes, moves like D4 or bishop E3. I ended up playing bishop F4. E5 is played. This is a mistake. Here, white has the tactical knight takes E5. Here is the idea. We're giving up a piece for a pawn, right? But no matter how you take this knight, I don't care. I'm taking this bishop for free. So you get a piece for a pawn, but then I get a full piece. What's the result? We're up a pawn. That's great. And, if black tries to do some little intermediate move like bishop takes G2, we're not taking this bishop. We have knight C6 check. The idea of this is that we're checking the king, right? But unlike anywhere else this king, anywhere else this knight can go, we're attacking the queen, and we're also preventing the queen from coming to E7. This might remind some of you guys of the Petrov's defense, in which case, we have this move knight F3, we take on E5, and black takes here. This is a mistake because of queen E2. Now, black should play this move of queen E7, in which case white is still better. But if this knight moves, knight C6 check, right? It's easy here to just go, oh, let's take a rook. And this is winning, but this is better, right? We attack the queen, your king's in check. And if you block with the queen, thanks for the queen anyways, right? So that is kind of the idea behind this line after knight takes E5, right? To get that bishop takes G2, knight C6 check idea. But okay, D takes E5 is played. I capture off the piece. I get the heck out of there, right? When you take a piece with your bishop, don't feel the pressure to just keep moving the bishop around there somewhere. You can always just bring it right back. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And here black goes to castling kingside. Now that the king is no longer on E8, this bishop is now threatened. And okay, I play bishop E3, bishop G5, bishop E4 is what I went with here. I'm just trying to, improve my pieces, attack some light squares. If you try to kick me out, which black wisely did not do, I now get a fantastic diagonal attacking that king. If king H7, we can throw in another check, capture off, rook F1. We're looking to capture this pawn. If a move like queen G5, we can end up, trading off here and getting a great game. We can actually take capture on F5, play bishop E4. What's the only way you have to defend this rook? King G6, G4. How do you defend this rook? You can't. White's about to go up. +2 in this position in terms of material. And if a move like queen F6, we capture, right? Bishop E4, your queen's about to fall. So bishop E4 here, black really can't kick it out like that. They instead decided to capture on E3 and then play the move of F5. I still think that's a mistake though, because the bishop D5 would check. Here I ended up castling queenside. B5 is played. Now notice black here is trying to gain some counterplay, right? And when I see that move, I go, you know what? I'm just going to step off, right? Similar to the idea that we talked about in the first game. There's so many moments, guys, whether there's an open file, whether there's a diagonal, whether there's not even any threat at all, just even, just when you look at a position, right? Geometrically, the king is safer on B1, right? It's safe from this diagonal. It's safe from this file. I play the move king B1. Now B4, I'm not scared of it. There's no pin there. There's no pin to my king. B4 was played. I just take it. That's fine. Knight F6. Draw my bishop back. Keep it on that active diagonal. Queen D6 is played. I ended up playing A3. And after A5, I played this move of g4, but, I just wanted to mention that b takes a5 here. It might be tempting to take this pawn, but if we keep capturing, black's going to get a little bit of counterplay, right? Our king's going to have less cover. Instead of having 3 pieces here, pawn/pieces, now we only have 2 in front of the king. And if we move the bishop, which is the computer move, queen takes a3, white is still better here, following queen takes e5, but I just looked at this position and I'm thinking a blitz game, a queen and 2 rooks looking right at my king, I'm good. So after a5, I just play this move of g4. If you want to take my pawn, I have ideas like g5, kicking your knight around. This king is starting to get into some trouble. f4 was played. I ended up going with queen e1, trying to defend that pawn and also looking towards queen h4 ideas. But after a takes b4, I played this move a4. I think that this is a solid move, but better, right? And again, this is a blitz game, so that we lack time to really calculate, which means that there's going to be less precision. But this move of queen g4 is an option, as well as g5. But here's the idea. Your knight has to block, right? You can't run away with the king. And if your knight blocks to h5, thanks for the knight. If it blocks to h7, we have g5 threatening g6. You gotta play something like g6, stopping us. Now we lock it up, right? And we're going to keep trying to put pressure on black's king side. Let's just say you play a move like rook a8. Let's play queen g4. If you really try to double up like crazy, we can start pushing our pawn. And if you want to sack, throw in a check, queen e8. If the queen, goes here, all of a sudden the knight falls. It might look a little bit scary, but black just kind of lacks the resources to follow through. So following a takes b4, I did have that move available, but I played a4 instead. And then here I played the move of g5. And after knight h5, I could play that, but then I got to deal with g6. So why not play g6 first and then look to play this? Now this pawn is stuck and this knight is by itself, right? If the knight moves here, check, we're about to win that game by mate. If knight g3, we could just capture that knight off. We're threatening mate now. If you stop it, we're threatening mate again. If you come here, we can play rook g1. There's tons of pressure here, guys. I mean, if you want to take our queen, there's still a threat. So, this position is getting close to just dead loss for black. Queen f6 is played, trying to prevent me from going there. I ended up going with rook g4, looking towards that file. f3, queen h4, threatening the knight. If you want to take my queen, I capture back. The knight's pinned, indefendable, easy win for white. Queen f5 is played instead, but okay, rook g5. This game ends pretty quickly. Queen h4, and the FIDE master ends up running out of time. But, a big reason I include this game is not so much because of, the Hippopotamus Defense. We didn't even get to play a hippo, but more to kind of look at the fact that, okay, in this position here, black can stop the hippo. They can play this move of h5, but in doing so, they're weakening their position. g5 is indefendable by the h6 pawn. Because of that, a knight can jump in here, a bishop can jump in here. The only way that you can kick it out is by playing f6, and we all know that in most cases, f6 is just horrible. So I think that h5 has a lot of, kind of negative effects on black's position. I would say that, h5 is negative in a lot of ways. I would say a5, on the other hand, it's less impactful, to the king on e8 because it's on the queen side, but it's still weakening, right? Anytime we push a pawn, it is weakening to certain squares, and we just have to be mindful of that. And I think playing h5 on move 1 is just not the way to go, okay? But all I have to say, let me know what you hippo players think. I would not recommend trying to play a hippo there for the reasons I mentioned. It just doesn't work. We don't have the time, right? Black's going to blast things open before we're ready to really get counterplay and strike towards that center. But that's just my take on it. Let me know what you think, down in the comment section below. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace. Hey, thanks for watching today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon community for the month of May in 2024. I appreciate y'all a ton. And if you haven't thought about becoming a Patreon supporter for this channel before, I highly recommend that you go and check out some of the benefits that you gain by becoming a member. And I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.